Welcome to Blood Sugar Squad, your go-to channel for simple, actionable tips to manage diabetes and live your best life. You check your blood sugar first thing in the morning. You went to bed at a good number. You did not snack overnight, but somehow your glucose is higher when you wake up than when you went to sleep. That is called the dawn phenomenon, and it is incredibly common. Now, there is a hack floating around the internet. Take a spoonful of vinegar before bed. Some people swear it lowers their morning blood sugar, but does it actually work? Or is it just another wellness myth? Today, we are going to look at the evidence. Not TikTok testimonials, not influencer anecdotes, real clinical studies. We will break down what the research says about vinegar and morning glucose, explain how it might work, and give you a clear verdict. Segment 1. What is the dawn phenomenon? Before we talk about vinegar, let us quickly explain what we are trying to fix. The dawn phenomenon is not a medical mystery. It is a normal physiological process that happens to everyone, but it can create challenges for people with diabetes. Here is what happens. In the early morning hours, usually sometime before you wake up, your body starts preparing for the day. Hormones such as cortisol and growth hormone signal your liver to release stored glucose into the bloodstream. This gives your body energy for the day ahead. In someone without diabetes, the pancreas responds by releasing enough insulin to keep blood sugar relatively stable. But if you have diabetes, that system may not work properly. Your body may not produce enough insulin, or it may not use insulin effectively. As a result, that extra glucose can remain in your bloodstream. You wake up with a higher blood sugar reading, even though you did nothing wrong. That is the dawn phenomenon. Now, time to add some vinegar. Segment 2. Does vinegar actually work? The most frequently cited study on bedtime vinegar was published in 2007. Researchers gave people with well-controlled type 2 diabetes 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar mixed with water before bed. They then measured fasting blood sugar the next morning. The results were encouraging. Participants who took the vinegar experienced lower fasting glucose levels compared to the placebo group. Sounds impressive, right? Well, there was one major limitation. Only 11 people participated in the study. That does not mean the results were wrong. It simply means the study was too small to give us a definitive answer. Since then, researchers have conducted additional studies examining vinegar and blood sugar control. Several reviews and meta-analyses suggest that vinegar may help reduce fasting glucose levels and may improve long-term markers of blood sugar control in some people. That is encouraging. But there is another question we need to answer. When people say vinegar, what kind of vinegar are they talking about? Most of the research has focused on apple cider vinegar, but the active ingredient researchers care about is not the apple. It is the acetic acid. Acetic acid is found in many types of vinegar, including white vinegar, red wine vinegar, and apple cider vinegar. In theory, any vinegar with a similar acetic acid content could have similar effects. However, not all vinegars are created equal. Some specialty vinegars, especially certain balsamic vinegars, contain added sugars or naturally higher sugar content. While the amounts are usually small, they may not be the best choice if your goal is lowering blood sugar. That is one reason apple cider vinegar became popular in the research. It contains acetic acid, is widely available, and typically contains very little carbohydrate when used in small amounts. So where does that leave us? The evidence points in a promising direction, but it is not yet strong enough to say that vinegar reliably fixes the dawn phenomenon for everyone. Segment 3. Why vinegar might help. Even though the evidence is not definitive, there are good scientific reasons why vinegar might help some people. The key ingredient is acetic acid. Acetic acid appears to affect blood sugar in several ways. First, it can slow the digestion and absorption of carbohydrates. This means glucose enters the bloodstream more gradually after a meal instead of creating a larger spike. Second, some studies suggest vinegar may improve insulin sensitivity. In simple terms, your body may become slightly more effective at using the insulin it already has. Researchers are also investigating whether vinegar influences how the body handles glucose over time, although exactly how these effects occur is still being studied. What is important to understand is that vinegar is not acting like a diabetes medication. It is not forcing blood sugar down. Instead, it appears to help the body's natural glucose handling systems work a little more efficiently. That is why the effects tend to be modest rather than dramatic. If vinegar helps, it is probably helping around the edges rather than completely eliminating the dawn phenomenon. And this brings us back to the type of vinegar. The reason researchers focus on apple cider vinegar is not because apples are magical. It is because apple cider vinegar provides a predictable source of acetic acid with very little sugar. White vinegar likely works through many of the same mechanisms because it also contains acetic acid. Red wine vinegar may as well. Balsamic vinegar is where things become less clear. While it contains acetic acid, it also tends to contain more natural sugars and carbohydrates. That does not make balsamic vinegar unhealthy, but it may not be the ideal choice if your goal is specifically reducing fasting glucose. Segment 4, the verdict. After looking at the studies, the biological mechanisms, and the limitations of the research, the answer is surprisingly simple. The vinegar hack is plausible. Small studies have shown encouraging results, and researchers continue to investigate its effects on glucose control. If you decide to experiment with vinegar, the evidence is strongest for plain apple cider vinegar because it is the type most often used in research studies. White vinegar may also be a reasonable option because it contains the same active ingredient, acetic acid. Balsamic vinegar is probably not the best choice for this purpose because it typically contains more natural sugars and carbohydrates than apple cider vinegar or white vinegar. Most studies have used about 1 to 2 tablespoons of vinegar diluted in a large glass of water. Notice the word diluted. Do not drink vinegar straight. The acid can damage tooth enamel, irritate your throat, and may cause stomach discomfort. There are also situations where you should be cautious. Vinegar can interact with certain medications, including insulin and some diuretics. It may also cause digestive upset in some people. And if you have gastroparesis or other stomach-related conditions, talk with your healthcare provider before trying it. So here's the bottom line. The vinegar hack might help. It probably will not hurt most people when used appropriately. But it is not a cure. It is not a replacement for proven diabetes management, and it is not guaranteed to fix your morning blood sugar. Treat it like an experiment, not a miracle. Track your fasting glucose for a week or two, then try vinegar consistently for another week or two and compare the results. Your glucose meter or CGM will tell you far more than social media ever will. Segment 5, final thoughts. The dawn phenomenon is real, frustrating, and surprisingly common. The vinegar hack has some science behind it, and the early evidence is encouraging. But the evidence is still developing. What we can say is this: if vinegar helps, the benefit likely comes from the acetic acid. So, apple cider vinegar remains the most studied option and is probably the most logical place to start. If you decide to try it, keep your expectations realistic. It may help. It may do very little. And it is not going to replace proven diabetes management strategies. What matters most is your own data. Track your numbers. Look for patterns. And remember that what works for someone on the internet may not work for your unique body. And as always, talk with your healthcare provider before making significant changes to your diabetes routine. Have you tried the vinegar hack? If so, what type of vinegar did you use, and did it help your morning blood sugar? Comment below, and please share this video with someone with dawn phenomenon. Until next time, stay strong, stay sweet, but not too sweet, and keep thriving with the Blood Sugar Squad.